All right, on this podcast, we try to teach people about the NFL. Mike Am, Michael Robinson with you. There's something else that I've been learning working with you, Rob.
What's up?
That you are, and I've said this on other podcasts, one of the more positive people that I know. But if you ever throw shade at someone, it's because of the attire that they potentially are, or I shouldn't say potentially. Kyler Murray.
Yes.
We did a segment on TA the other day. You threw some shade his way, and I was surprised.
Well, again, you call it shade, Yams, but it's more of my expectations for that player are so high, and I don't see him reaching those expectations. So I'm a little disappointed, right? I'm a little disappointed. So it comes from a place of positivity. Let's say it that way.
You still figure out a way to bring it full circle. Today we're going to have some fun. We're going to actually talk about one of the more explosive positions on the football field. That is the wide receiver spot. But I want to take you back November 23rd, 2014. Let that one sink in for just a second. Do you have any idea why that is a significant date from a wide receiver's perspective?
From a wide receiver. Okay. Now that you say it that way, I'm assuming there was some type of catch on that day.
There was a big catch that had a really interesting call. OBJ handling business. Collinsworth said it.
That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen.
I feel like we're getting a lot of these more frequently, but when you saw it, what was your take?
I was like, oh my goodness, is that real? That can't be for real. And then I was like, well, he had to be out of bounds. And to me, what made the catch, that OBJ catch, so amazing is he scored. He scored a touchdown too. He actually put the ball across the goal line as well. Not only just the catch, but got some points for his team. That's what made it amazing to me.
All right, so we played the audio for you. If you're a little on the younger side of our demo who checks out this show, I encourage you. You can go and YouTube it like all the kids do. The catch, as M-Rob just made reference to. Eli Manning, the quarterback, hits the 43-yard reception with one hand, fingertips, the whole thing. There's a part of me that says, all right, dudes are skilled, and I get that.
Yes.
This is probably the second or third time I've made reference to him on this podcast, but Curtis Conway, good buddy of mine, Seaway would always say this to me, yo, man, those receiver gloves, a little different than when I used to play. They're really sticky, and I actually have a bunch of them. I think they're just more sticky than the ones from back in the day.
They are sticky. They are a little bit more sticky than the old Newman gloves that I used to wear when I was growing up. But look, these guys... they're not making these catches because of the gloves. Okay, the gloves help. Yes,
they're helping.
Gloves help
I could be like Spider-Man, all right,
True.
Scaling walls with the way some of these gloves are.
But Mike, you're outside catching with those gloves. There's not other defensive backs trying to tackle you, take your head off, all of those things. The guys have to be skillful enough to still catch the football. And I think the reason why we're seeing so many of these crazy catches, it's all revolving around the quarterback. And the more the quarterback has passing camps as he's a younger guy, the more the 7-on-7 camps that are happening. These quarterbacks aren't throwing to themselves. They're throwing to wide receivers that are out there. So these wide receivers are just getting more reps. And so the opportunities for the great catches are just showing up a little bit more.
Look, we see great catches on Sundays, and we made reference to, Pickens had one, a couple weeks, earlier in the season. He had a great one from a Steelers perspective. These things happen. I also wonder if social media plays a little bit of a factor in this whole thing.
You got to have something to post. Yeah. That's everything.
Trying to get those double taps.
Are you kidding me? Like I remember my son's birthday last year. He's about to be 13 this year, and all he wanted was a background so he can post. That's all he wanted. My times have changed. When I was young, I wanted money. I wanted, a W, a belt, a wrestling belt, or something. He just wanted a background so he can take selfies. That's the generation we're in. So yeah, social media does account for it, because not only are these young football players and youth levels seeing their favorite player go on social media, but obviously you want the likes, you want that gratification for people looking at you.
Should I be worried about the future?
No, I believe our future's in good hands, but
there's a lot of selfies out there.
It is a lot of selfies out there. In downtown Richmond, Virginia, we have a selfie museum. Okay,
Stop.
It's a real business and it makes money. Yeah. People come, they get a little bit different background, and they take selfies. That is the culture we are in. Yes. Yes, Mike. Yes.
I always feel awkward doing it. Oh my God, I didn't know that was a thing.
That's a thing. It's a selfie museum. Shout out to the people down there in Richmond, Virginia at the selfie museum. Yes.
Emrod bringing it. As we made reference to, today is all about the evolution of the wide receivers. We'll sprinkle in a little more selfie conversation at some point, maybe even on a different episode. We're going to break this down from every single angle. And I know I just brought up the gloves and them being sticky. There's also a reason, not just the one-handed grabs, but there's a reason why the position has evolved to the point where you can make an argument it is the most important position on the football field outside of the quarterback. I think there's an argument to be made. We're going to go through some of the numbers, some of the data, but I think we should actually start back in 1974.
How old was you then, Mike?
I was negative.
Me too.
Yeah.
I was negative about 25 years later.
I was in the negative in 74. My parents weren't even married at that point. Just to put some context, damn, I'm feeling old. 74. In response to what was called the bump and run coverage, defenders could no longer restrict wide receivers after 3+ yards. Now, that was actually increased to 5 yards in 1978, and immediately you saw a spike, and it makes sense, right? In passing yards from 159 per game in 78 to 180 the following year. So it's by far the biggest spike in the Super Bowl era. Now, starting in 2002, I was very much alive. I was actually still in college at that point. Quarterbacks were more protected with helmet-to-helmet hits becoming illegal, followed by a 2006 rule that barred hits from below the knees on quarterbacks. And I think we can all agree all of that stuff, man, yeah, for sure, is good. There's dudes who, when guys start going low, I'm like, ooh, like I cringe a little bit when I see those moments on the field. Good. No, it doesn't. 2004, defensive holding and illegal contact on wide receivers became a point of emphasis. And in 2009, any hit on a player deemed a defenseless receiver was implemented, resulting in a 15-yard penalty. Also, we saw these hits take place on the college side where guys get ejected. I'm all for it because I do think it's important to keep all these players safe. But in your mind, if you're a DB, it's kind of hard to defend some of these dudes with some of these rules, right?
Impossible.
Yeah.
It is impossible. You'll see the top defensive backs, Jalen Ramsey. Who else? Give me another top D. J.C. Jackson.
Who just got paid. Yeah,
all of these guys, they will tell you. The days of the shutdown cornerback are gone. There's no longer those guys walking the planet anymore because the rules don't allow it. The gameplay doesn't allow it. The ingenuity of the offenses don't allow it. Yams. We live in a Western society.
We do.
The Western society is all about the offensive, right? And you can see it show up in our game. Passing plays, passing downs, and throwing the ball through the air is exciting, right? I think back in the early days of football when it was more of a defensive struggle and running the football and 2 yards in a cloud of dust and all of those things, I think the people that ran our league was thinking, how can we make this more marketable? How can we get the fans a little bit more excited about their respective teams? And I think that's why you saw the explosion in the passing game. That's why you saw the rules kind of change a little bit. But it does take a different type of guy to be a defensive back in today's NFL. Yeah, you can be, I think I was with the Pete Carroll way of thinking about defensive backs, longer guys, not necessarily the fastest guys in the world, but they're so long that they have that makeup speed by their length, right? They can make up because of how long they are, i.e. Richard Sherman and things like that. But it does take a unique individual, especially psychologically, Yams. Think about it. All the rules, all the things that go against defenses, you can't touch them. You can't hit them when they do get the ball. You can't hit the passer. You got to let him throw the football. Let him do. I mean, Cam Chancellor hit Vernon Davis one time, and I think it was the NFC Championship. Oh, man, it was awesome. He hit him so hard, and Vernon's my guy. I love Vernon. He hit Vernon so hard, Vernon pants almost came off. I said, how you hit a dude so hard his pants almost came off? That's how hard he hit him. And I remember Cam said, man, I went to the ref, and the ref just looked at me and then threw the flag. And he said, why'd you throw the flag? And the ref said, that just looked too hard. That just looked too violent. Yeah. He said he didn't tell me anything that was wrong with the hit. It just looked too violent. So that is the environment our defensive backs have to operate in. So they have to have, from a psychological standpoint, they have to have a short memory, and they got to be wired differently, right? They can't, when I say short memory, just because you had a catch on you 2 plays ago, you cannot let that affect the next play.
Because more times than not, you're going to get burned. Like in those moments, you're the guy.
10 times out of 10, you're going to get somebody catching the football on you. That's just the way it goes. Okay, we see Jalen Ramsey, one of the best. Arguably the best in the game at the cornerback position. When the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were trying to come back last year, Tom Brady went after Jalen Ramsey. Earlier this season, he's been criticized. So again, it's tough to play defensive back in the National Football League.
Any truth to that old adage that they're wide receivers who just can't catch?
That is true.
Okay.
If you're a wide receiver and you can catch, you stay on the offensive side of the ball. Serious business. Like my son, I always give reference to my son. My youngest boy, B5, was going down. I know he listens. He listens every week, so I know he's going to enjoy the fact
that
really? Yeah, he does.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like I hear him. He has his Sonos going, and he listens to it. So it's all good.
Taking selfies while he's
doing it right with his Jordans on and stuff. That's the young people in today's game. But I tell my son all the time, everybody wants to play wide receiver. The harder position to play and the position you get a lot of benefit of the doubt on is defensive back. Not a lot of guys want to go there because guys get toasted.
Yeah. Not necessarily the easiest thing. By the way, and the position, the way guys are paid, wide receivers now are cashing in a big way. I know we've talked about that a ton on NFL Network, especially in the offseason with a lot of those contracts. But, we briefly mentioned before, Rob, quarterbacks. And just to add some context on the passing game, I want to go back to 1979. That was the year after the initial illegal contact rule was instituted. Dan Fouts led the league with 255 passing yards per game.
That's not bad. In 79?
Well, that's actually the point, right? So you hear 255 and 79. How about this? In 2022, so far through week 5, that would land him 18th, just ahead of Russell Wilson. And
Average.
Let's be real here. Russ ain't
having a great season. Go ahead, Mike. I'm going to say it.
Yeah, you could. You I feel bad saying it.
Yeah, don't feel bad.
One other quick note here, by the way. Andy Dalton has more career passing yards than all but 9 of the 29 Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Is that for real?
Yeah.
Hey, research. Is that for real? Did y'all really look at Is that for real?
That is no joke.
Andy Dalton's a backup quarterback in this league right now, and he already has more passing yards than 9?
Yeah. You want to hear some of the names?
Yes, please.
Dude, Troy Aikman.
Okay.
Steve Young.
Football. What?
Jim Kelly.
The run and shoot?
Yo.
Are you kidding me? Yeah. Andy Dalton's ahead of those guys?
Yeah. Just context, man. Like this. You said it, and you said it well. It all is going more towards the offense and the popularity of the sport. People want to see some points being scored. Now, the first thing to note, actually, is from 1974 to 1986, a wide receiver, this was shocking to me, led the NFL in receptions in only 2 seasons.
What?
I'm going to let that one sink in for a second. Art Monk in 84, Dwight Clark in 82. Wow. So from 1987 to 2022, a wide receiver led the NFL in receptions every season but one. Tony Gonzalez was that guy in 2004, and that was just a ridiculous season. So let's take a closer look at the 1,000-yard receivers versus the rushers. In 2000, there were 23 1,000-yard rushers and 18,000-yard receivers. Fast forward to 2015, 26 wideouts that actually reached that mark versus just 7 rushers that hit the 1,000-yard milestone. 2020, by the way, that was the same total. I almost feel like we might not go back to the old school NFL. I mean, hell, you want to talk about defense and how people don't want to see it. Remember that Thursday night game a couple weeks back, Colts and Broncos 12-9. And by the way, everyone's, bad game. I'm sitting here going, do you know how many great plays the defense made?
There was a lot of great plays.
And I'm sitting here going, all right, it's different, but defense is still a part of the game. I say that in the wide receiver episode. Probably should table that.
Oh, good. I was talking about defensive back just a few minutes ago.
Got to sprinkle all of this in, a little bit for everyone. So not only are wide receivers really prospering, they're actually doing it at a younger age. Okay. So it used to take guys fewer years to get, a couple extra years, I should say, to get acclimated to the pro game. That transition's not always easy for a lot of players. But in 2021, 12 receivers under 26 went over 1,000 yards. That's the most in NFL history, right? 2021, Jamar Chase broke the same record Justin Jefferson broke in 2022 for the most rookie receiving yards in a season. How do you explain it? I know there's the LSU connection, but the reality is there's other dudes that are really putting up huge numbers.
Yeah, that's crazy, Yams. I know we get scripts, and I didn't read all of this. I'm just going to be honest. So to hear you say these numbers, early on, when you talk about that generation of the 70s and even before that in the 60s, that was a running back's time. Most teams played with multiple running backs on the field. The fullback was a real position. Hell, people don't realize Franco Harris's position was fullback, right? But he ran the football. He caught the football. Tom Rathman in that West Coast system, that was a little bit later. He caught the football a little bit more, but it was a lot more running backs involved with the game. And I think that as the business of football, right, it starts in college, the business of football. Actually, I can argue that the business of football starts in high school, where coaches are having less patience from their superiors to get the job done. And so coaches on the younger levels from the National Football League, they have to recruit. And when you recruit, you got to promise young people certain things that they're going to have when they come to university or your high school. And so I believe that a lot of the ingenuity of these coaches wanted to get these players on the field earlier. So they devised plans so that they can learn the game easier. For instance, some offenses try to hurry up, right? Or tried to hurry up, like with the Chip Kelly offenses and things like that. Well, instead of having to huddle up, call a play so everybody knows what's going on, they just stayed at the line of scrimmage, put some signs up, receivers looked to the sideline. They now knew their route. It was a little bit more of an efficient way to getting the play to everybody so that you can gain an edge, so that you can gain an advantage, so the head guy can keep his job. I believe it all came down to that. I believe all changes came down to that. You know, I went to Penn State. The year before I got to Penn State, in 2000, they had just started running the shotgun a year before that. That was like 98, 99. And Coach Paterno understood that if I don't change with the times, I'm going to lose my job. And at the end of the day, he changed. We opened up the offense. Things happen. I believe that's the same thing that's happened to the wide receivers. The fact that teams had to put these guys on the field a little bit earlier. Coaches had to adjust. They had to be more efficient in play calling. Hence, these guys are getting more reps. These guys are getting more opportunities to catch the football.
Okay, I referenced some of the numbers from the 70s and the 80s. I will say this. Body types have also changed as well. We will get into that later here in terms of the wide receivers and some of the things that we are seeing, measurables from the combine. You mentioned the younger guys, though, 7-on-7 camps, all the rage here. I think there's a lot of different ways to look at this, and I would love your expertise because I know you're around youth football. I've been around guys. Jake Plummer is one person that comes to mind. He used to say the worst thing you can do for a kid is have him just focus in on one sport.
Yes, it is.
He said, I wanted to play everything, and I think that actually helped me on the football field. Now, all of a sudden, with these 7-on-7 camps, like dudes are playing all year long. So I'm torn because I see better wide receiver play. The numbers bear it out. Scheme also is a part of that. But physically, these guys are really gifted. You get, what is that, the 10,000 hours, right? The Malcolm Gladwell deal? So do you, from a 7-on-7 perspective, is that actually helping or hurting some of these dudes?
I believe it's helping from the ability for them to see the routes, for the ability that they have to have the reps of running the routes over and over and over.
That transition, those young guys like Chase and Jefferson.
Yes, and so it transitions into the National Football League. But I will say this. There was a play a couple weeks ago where the Las Vegas Raiders played the Kansas City Chiefs. And at the end of that game, you saw the two wide receivers run into each other. And that's how the game ended. The Raiders wide receivers ran into each other.
Yeah, you and I had some fun on.
Yeah, we had some fun on Total Access about that one.
I hate cutting you off.
No, you good.
But I think this is important. We're in our Total Access meeting, okay? And Rob was like, the disappointment on his face while he's describing this moment was just epic. And you illustrated it on camera, but you were disappointed because I think, and I don't want to misquote you here, but it was something to the effect of, you got two veteran wide receivers who need to know better.
They should know better. They should. I mean, Devontae Adams is arguably the best route runner, the best complete wide receiver in the National Football League. Hunter Renfrow, like I said on Total Access, I call him 7-11 because he's always open. Okay? And if you notice that, right, and again, I'm not saying that the Raiders, that they just put up signs and that's how the receivers get their routes. But what happened was Devontae Adams got pressed on the outside and they threw off the timing. When you have an offense where, and I see it in college every week, where they're just looking to the sideline, they're throwing up the route combinations, guys saying, okay, I got my route combination, I got a post. Well, you do have a post. I mean, you do have a post or a corner. But the way for you to get open is it depends on the timing of the receiver on the outside, and you have to have the wherewithal and the the chemistry within the offense to know this, to know that Hunter Renfrow should have looked outside. Oh, Devontae Adams is a little bit pressed. Sure. I got to slow this thing down just a tad so that I can get the football. To me, yes, young kids are getting more reps with the 7-on-7 camps, all of those things. And from a technical standpoint, the wide receiver position is getting better. But if you ask a lot of former players, and I'm one of them, completely how the wide receiver fits into the offense, we believe they're becoming a little bit less relevant. And I say that by saying, wow, I believe in 10 years, wide receivers are going to be looked at as runners are looked at now, where you say, we can find a running back at any time of the draft.
Sure.
Right? You have wide receivers. They're all running 4.2s and 4.3s. They all can catch. You can find a Stephon Diggs in the second or third round. You can find a guy in the 6th or 7th round. I just believe that we're seeing the golden years of wide receivers now, and at some point they're going to be looked at like running backs, like you can get one at any time of the draft.
Because the running backs used to be the golden position back in the day, and now it has shifted. We're going to actually, coming up here, talk about some of those numbers. But if that's the case, then what becomes the value position? Is it defensive back? Is it, one of those D tackles, someone or an edge guy that can get after the quarterback and be disruptive? Does it go that direction?
I believe in a football team, your offensive line, right, is the engine of your team. Your secondary is the battery.
Sure.
Like if we were using a car reference, you can't really win having real deficiencies in both areas. So I believe the next wave of like star athletes or whatever will revolve around the line of scrimmage, your big-time tackles, your big-time pass rushers, the big athletic guys. We saw Trayvon Walker go number 1 overall this year, and your defensive backs. Guys who, we just talked about the diversity in receivers. We just talked about how it used to be a golden age of running backs. Now you're going to have a defensive back who has the quickness and the speed to stay with guys like Tyreek Hill and the shiftiness to stay with, Jamar Chase and guys like that. But you also have to have the pads and the aggressiveness to tackle running backs because you're going to be on the field all the time. I just think the defensive players are in it. We're literally seeing them change before our eyes.
Okay, so I think coming up here, and it's important to note here, wide receiver sets and how they're being used also impacts the significance of this position. Mm-hmm. A year ago, it can kind of actually explain some of the draft stuff that we're seeing. I shouldn't say a year ago, because in 2006, teams lined up with 3 wideouts just 14.2% of the time. In 2021, that's up almost 10%, actually exactly 10%, 24.2. So there is definitely a higher priority right now in terms of finding some of these guys in the NFL draft. Are they bigger, though? Are they stronger? Are they faster? Tell you what, yeah, the answer shortly is yes. I'll take you through some of those numbers. And I'll also tell you this. Do you need a big-time wide receiver in order to win a Super Bowl? Mm-hmm. And the answer actually may surprise you. That's still to come on the NFL Explained podcast. Welcome back to the NFL Explained podcast. We do this show every week, Rob, and fundamentally, I understand that people listen to the show, but when I get a DM with a question, I actually really, because I put it on the text thread, I actually get legit excited, and more questions are popping up. So I do encourage you. Emrah said don't slide into my DMs.
No, don't go to my DM. Wifey, I love you, baby. You can okay. None of the NFL questions.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. NFL questions only. You can certainly slide into my DMs at Mike_Yam. Legitimately, we will be doing a mailbag episode. We've actually been accumulating, and I hit everyone back, and I tell you, hey, I love the question. We've sent it along. Our team is researching it, so I promise that mailbag episode right around the corner. Keep the questions coming.
We have some very informed fans. Yeah. The level of football IQ from some of these questions is wow, what? They thought about that? That's like a general manager question. That's something that a GM would say.
We got an Australian one the other day, too. I got excited about it. I'm like, we're international. What's up? I'll take it. And by the way, I actually asked a question on our text thread as well, because I noticed something the other day, and I'm like, I don't know the answer. And I was like, I know I'm not the only one noticing this when they're watching on Sundays, so that's like the deepest tease ever, and I promise we'll pay it off in that mailbag episode. You drop general manager. Those are the dudes who kind of handle business and putting together these teams. They have been going crazy looking for wide receivers. How about this? Last year, 6 wideouts went in the top 18 picks. It was the first time in the Super Bowl era that there have been at least 5 wide receivers taken in 3 straight seasons in the first round. They're ballers. Now, between 2010 and 2020, the average number of first-round receivers was just 3.7. So you think that the boom would actually be, more physical traits for some of these wide receivers that had improved. Let's take you through some of the combine numbers since 2003. We'll start with the 40. Nothing better than watching these dudes run the 40. By the way, Tariq Woolen, the rookie corner
from Seattle,
I would love to see him in a foot race with Tyreek Hill.
Oh, my goodness. Did you see? I mean, don't get me wrong, Taysom Hill ended up scoring, but he tracked Taysom Hill down in 5 steps. He was there.
Taysom Hill had a 5-yard lead. I'm like, what? I'm like, that's why we focus on the 40 in the combine.
Yes, it is, man. That kid is fast.
It was awesome. All right, so let's get back to some of these 40 numbers. What's sort of fascinating is from 2003 to 2005, that average was 4.55 seconds. Fast forward, that's decreased by 0.05 of a second, which is sort of kind of like one of those, but not really.
When you talk about professional athletes and, I mean, the highest of the height, these are National Football League NFL players, okay? 0.5 of a second could mean a Super Bowl. 0.5 of a second, I mean, that's just the advantage that you could possibly need to get you and your team over the hump. So, yeah, that's big. That's big, Mike.
Height has actually increased exactly 1 inch from 72.1 inches to just over 6 feet to 73.1 inches, which is 6'1". Weights have basically remained stable at 202.7 pounds. Vertical leap also stayed mostly the same at 35.5 inches. There's a lot of different ways, though, to be successful. And Rob, you play with so many dudes who just did it differently at the wide receiver spot. Is there a specific characteristic that makes a wide receiver successful in the NFL?
Well, I think the number one characteristic is the wide receiver's ability to just catch the football.
Sure.
That is the number one.
So he doesn't have to be a DB.
No, exactly. So we can stay on the good guy's side of the football, right? The offense, right? And at the end of the day, that's your number one job description. You're a wide receiver. When the ball is in the air, your job is to be able to catch the football. And for me, number 2 would be catch radius. To be able to protect the quarterback, meaning the quarterback can sit on his back foot and understand, I don't necessarily have to be the most accurate on this pass, but I can throw it and know that my guy's going to have enough catch radius to be able to pull the ball in, catch it with his hands, and also protect the ball from an interception. You'd be surprised how many quarterbacks, and even when I played quarterback, I remember at Penn State, I love Donnie. His name is Donnie Johnson. I don't know what he's doing right now. I think he might be selling insurance or something. Went to Penn State, and I'm not going to lie to you, he was a former defensive back. And I used to always have trepidation when he moved the offense about throwing him the football because I just didn't necessarily, kind of like what Aaron Rodgers is going through with his receivers right now. Yeah. You just didn't quite know exactly what was going to be the result of the play if you threw it his way. So I would say catch radius. What's up, Donnie? I love you, brother. So I would say catch radius is number 2.
He's going to be sliding into your DMs.
Yes, he is. He's going to be hitting me up. It's all good. I see you at the next reunion, brother. The ability to separate at the top of routes. A guy that we use on our airwaves, Emmanuel Sanders, I thought was awesome at it. Steve Smith, Sr., also awesome at separating. And really, that's your ability to create space from the defender. Defenders are real handsy. They like to grab and whatever, and they have these little tricks of how they get to cheat and all those things. We can get into that on a whole nother episode. But the ability of a wide receiver to make a defensive back think he's doing something opposite than what he's really doing is something that's very important. And this isn't the biggest factor, but I tell you one thing, you can't teach this. And that's just speed.
Yeah.
Just going out there, the ability to pick them up, put them down, the ability to throw the ball to a Tyreek Hill in the flat, and his ability to make everybody miss, run around the defense, and go 80. To me, that scares defensive coordinators.
Okay, so you can explain this because I don't know the answer to it, but I've been told from other NFL dudes that even if you're not the fastest guy, you can make up the difference in terms of how you run a route.
Absolutely.
Can you just put into context like what that actually means? Because I think we always hear this, he's a great route runner. What makes a dude a great route runner?
It's
Say
all
that
good.
5 times fast. Sally sells seashells at the seashore.
I learned how to run routes when I was training in Arizona when I played in the National Football League. That's where I lived for the entire 9 years I was in the league. And the guy I trained with was Anquan Bolden.
Sure.
And I remember Q used to always kind of lead the group when we would do wide receiver drills. And I would always wonder, like, damn, Q ain't running that fast. I used to be like, Q, how fast are you, bro? He'd be like, man, I ran a 4.6, but I can tell you now, I have never ran full speed on a football field. I said, what? You've never ran full speed? He said, yeah, bro. Like, our knees and stuff, our tendons aren't built to, like, slow down this body from going that fast. So why would you do that so much on your body? You want to feel good, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't feel good to get chased down and tackled.
That's what I'm telling him. I said, bro, it don't feel good like getting chased down and tackled or looking slow on tape. You know? He said, look, man, it's all about controlled movements. He said, I run most of my routes at 50%. When I get to the top of the break, I give it 60 to separate. I might not get to full speed unless I'm in the open space. I got the football in my hands, and I know I'm racing to the end zone. And that led me to think of something. I started watching how the great ones ran their routes. I played with a guy by the name of Isaac Bruce, and he would always tell me, like, Mike, it ain't about running fast, man. You need to make him think you're going deep by your arm, by your arms pumping, not necessarily by your legs moving that fast. And so when I noticed that, man, this isn't just a full speed thing like I see on TV. You think these wide receivers are running full speed, but they're not. To me, what makes a great route runner is the ability to control their speed, get in and out of breaks smoothly, and not take false steps. And I think you look at a guy like Steve Smith Sr., a guy that works with me on Thursday Night Football. He probably is one of the best in history of doing it.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me to hear the speed thing, because we do make a lot out of the 40, and speed is something that you can't teach, and I'd rather have it than not have it. But for the dudes who maybe don't have it, like 4.3,
absolutely,
you actually can still have a lot of success. I don't run 4.3 or 4.6.
You think you can run a 5 flat, Yams? You think you can run a 5 flat? You think you can run a 5.5?
So
Come on, I'm putting you on the spot right now.
Okay, so I'll tell you a true story. Now, with the help of a treadmill, I can get up to 17.
Yams.
But I've never done it on like a deal.
BS, okay? Who runs a 40 on a damn treadmill?
No, but it's not a 40. It's just getting to that height speed.
No, because
it's a warm-up.
But the treadmill is forcing you. I'm talking about
exactly.
Free range, you out on a field, and you go out there, you run a 40. Can you run a 5.5?
Maybe.
Can you run a 6 flat?
Yes, I feel confident about that.
You can run a 6 flat.
I think I could.
You're confident you can run a 6 flat?
I think I could. I don't know about a 5.5, but I think I could hit 6.
I'm willing to put a friendly bet on that. Friendly, like a handshake or something like that. You know what I'm saying? We work for the National Football League. You know what I'm saying? Friendly. You know what I'm saying?
Like lunch up in the huddle, which is free for everyone.
There you go. There you go. I'll buy you lunch, okay, from the huddle. I got to see if Yams can run a 6 flat 40.
One of these days, so tomorrow I'm going to the chiropractor. If he can fix me up pretty good, like that is a true story. We might be able to get this done. By the way, I'm getting messages as you're saying this that this is going to happen.
Yes.
All right. So we'll work. We will work on that.
We do have a football field.
I don't think the football field is 40 though.
Maybe you can shuttle it. That would be even worse.
Lateral movement?
Oh my God! No, I wouldn't do that to you,
bro.
I wouldn't do that to you.
I'm 41. It's straight line running. That's
Mike,
it.
This is the first time I have seen you glisten a little bit. Oh, yeah, we got Yams. Yes.
By the way, I know that is not true because I sweat like a you-know-what on the TA set all the time. It gets warm
running
in there.
That 40,
all
man.
Right, I'm feeling it. Let's go. All right, back to some of these wide receivers here for a second. Hard right turn. Let's transition to stuff that is not involving me running and doing anything athletic. I had asked the question before about, do you need a top-end wide receiver in order to win a championship? There's some key numbers there, and I think for recent football fans, they'll be like, yeah, man, look at Cooper Kupp. He's a dude, right? A third-round guy, by the way, who I'm still sort of shocked if you know his story that he's been able to make it the way that he has. But we'll start with Cooper Kupp. He became the first ever to win a Super Bowl after leading the league and receiving since Jerry Rice, the GOAT, back in 1994. Now, since 2013, of the 44 teams, which is about 30%, that played in the Super Bowl, had a wide receiver who was in the top 5 in receiving yards in the NFL that season. Only 4 have won a ring. Marvin Harrison, Greg Jennings, who was a dude, Victor Cruz, thank you very much as a Giants fan, and of course Cooper Kupp. Super Bowl 56 between the Rams and the Bengals was the first Super Bowl where each team had a wide receiver who was top 5 in receiving yards in the NFL that season since Super Bowl 46. The last first-round draft pick to win a Super Bowl, Nelson Aguilar, and Philip Dorsett, neither of whom
I was about to say,
like the dude of dudes.
No.
He's still playing in the league. So, it's kind of,
they're not them guys, though.
Exactly.
I feel
not those dudes. So in 2014, check this out. Brown's general manager at the time was Ray Farmer. He actually downplayed the importance of having a superstar wide receiver. He said, I would say, how important are those guys? Name the last big-time receiver to win a Super Bowl. Name that last mega guy. So keep in mind, Cooper Kupp has done it. He's a mega dude. Farmer, by the way, 2 years after he made those comments, not there. And he did draft Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel. Do you tell me, man, does he have a point, though? I mean, because the numbers do sort of scream, you might not need Cooper Kupp to go and win a chip.
Yeah, I believe he does have a point. I believe that you throw to get in the playoffs, but you play great defense and run the ball to a championship. Now, you can argue about last year's Rams. You can argue about the Kansas City Chiefs, I think in the 2018 or 2019 season when they won their Super Bowl, because they did throw the football. But I do believe that there were times, in last year's playoffs and in that Kansas City Super Bowl run where they had to run the football and be physical. And I think what makes Cooper Kupp so different is, he was on the Super Bowl winning team. Yes, he led the league and he was the Triple Crown runner from a receiver standpoint. But he also has the baddest player, regardless of position or side of the ball, on his team, and that's Aaron Donald. And if you think about that Super Bowl, your lasting impressions and lasting memories of the Super Bowl when the Rams won last year is Aaron Donald making his plays, Aaron Donald making the sack. And oftentimes you don't see a big-time offense have a dominant defensive player like you saw in Aaron Donald. So I still believe defense wins championships. I believe if it wasn't for Aaron Donald in that defense and Von Miller,
that second half,
they wouldn't have won that championship. But Cooper Kupp in particular, to me, what makes him so special is he does the dirty work, Yams. To me, Cooper Kupp he lead blocks sometimes. He is the backside cutoff. He's cutting off defensive ends. He never comes out of the game. The guy has stamina like no other. He runs 50 yards down the field, jogs all the way back, runs 50. I mean, he never comes off the field. And I think that's what – and he's with a creative play caller in Sean McVay who understands how to focus on him in the passing game and put speed around him so he can get open. I think that's some of the issues with the Rams offense this year. They're missing that speed, but Cooper Kupp is a little bit of a different situation than other wide receivers. But I don't think you need a big time number one guy to win a Super Bowl.
It'd just be nice to have him.
It would be nice. I mean, look at when I won our Super Bowl in Seattle. I mean, people called our wide receivers Doug Baldwin, Jermaine Kearse. People act like they didn't know who those guys were. Now, after the Super Bowl, those guys became pretty good names. But beforehand, they weren't.
It's fascinating because you can make the argument, and you are making it, that you might not need the top flight wide receiver. But at the same time, I think about the dollars in this free agency period that have been disseminated to guys who play that position. It's almost like the league is saying, no, like I need those dudes.
Yeah, I think that the league is saying, I think the younger coaches and general managers who don't always have the historical approach or lens when looking at these players. Again, when you look at some of the top organizations, they understand when to go get a wideout. They understand how to address the offensive line, how to address the defensive line, how to address the secondary. At the end of the day, I just don't think you need one of those guys to win a Super Bowl because, again, you pass to get into the playoffs, you run and play great defense to a championship.
Yeah, to get over the hump, and maybe it's just get me there, and then we'll figure it out. Ask Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. All right, just want to add to this conversation, just because we mentioned sort of youth football, high school and the college level, what we've seen in terms of 1,000-yard receivers. In 2021, there were actually surprised me. I thought the number would be higher. 1,000-yard receivers in Division I football in 2021, 39. In 2015, there was 38. So kind of a marginal jump. But if you go back to 2000, it was 20. So we have almost seen double in about a 20-year period in terms of 1,000-yard receivers. 75 catch guys, by the way, in 2000 they were 7. 2021 they were 35. I think that also speaks to the scheme that you were discussing as well. And I think to take it a step further in youth football, you told me about a selfie museum. I know about these one-handed grabs. Like in my mind, as we're putting it together here, it becomes almost like the sexy position in football, dare I say, like right up there with the quarterback.
Yeah, and again, I think social media has a lot to do with this. I think we just started the show with the Odell Beckham catch. The media and the entire world kind of blowing that catch up has helped as well. And again, it's a very skillful catch. But I believe that, especially if our listeners can just go to the urban area in the places that they live and just go to a park and just watch young kids play football, you're going to see these catches. You're going to see the most dynamic player in the field usually is the quarterback. To me, that's where the spread system and the running quarterbacks, it came from. It came from youth football coaches just sitting there saying, you know what, I don't really know how to coach this particular scheme, but I do know one thing. This kid is the best kid out there. I want to find a way to put the ball in his hands over and over and over. And to me, that style of calling plays, that style of coaching has made it to the National Football League.
You know that there are generalizations that we hear about position groups in the NFL. Divas, is it a fair label to put on wide receivers?
I would say that, and diva doesn't necessarily mean negative, man. Like we have a negative connotation on the word diva. It doesn't necessarily mean negative. It means a little whiny sometimes.
I wouldn't want to be called a diva.
I wouldn't want to be called a diva either, but let's just think about it. The success of a wide receiver exclusively depends on the protection of his quarterback, the abilities of his everything about his position depends on somebody else. So you kind of got to be a diva, right? You kind of got to make sure that you're able to create the reality you want. You're able to get the conditions the way that you want it so that you can go be the best version of yourself out on the football field. So, yeah, they're a little bit of a diva. Okay. That's cool.
Are they the most athletic guys on the football field?
No.
Okay.
I don't believe they're the most. I don't believe wide receivers are the most athletic guys on the football field. I believe, honestly, defensive linemen are.
Whoa.
To be that big, to be that athletic, to run that fast, you're going up against 350-pound men. Yeah. Oftentimes they outweigh you by 20 or 30 pounds. You got to figure out a way to get around them. You can't land on the quarterback. You got to understand your strike zone. Yeah. I mean, so many. I mean, to me, Chris Jones, Aaron Donald, Jeffrey Simmons from the Tennessee Titans. What? These guys, some of these guys can dunk, yams. I mean, come on, man. To me, that the level of athleticism is crazy.
I've heard the smartest guys, though, on the football field are offensive linemen.
I could go to the center. I would say the center.
Yeah, it might have been a center who told me that.
Yeah, it might have been. It had to be a center that tells you. I would say a center is the smartest guy. Quarterbacks obviously have to be there as well. But man, them fullbacks are pretty smart too. I
just throw that out there.
They're pretty smart.
Just sprinkling a little love for the
moving guards
for the fullbacks as well. All right, I know I made reference to it a little bit earlier. I am having a blast. I hope you have as well, Rob, doing this show. We love getting those questions. Continue to slide into my DMs at Mike_Yam. You can follow Rob at Real Mike Rob. I don't know. Maybe if you ask him a football question, maybe he'll get back to you.
Yes,
I have no idea. But once again, always appreciate you guys checking us out. Tell a friend about this episode. And, of course, fire off those questions. It's the evolution of the wide receiver spot explained